Prologue. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. The sound of crunching snow beneath my boots echoed through the empty wilderness as I hiked deeper into the heart of Rocky Mountain National Park. The solitude was what I needed, a break from the chaos of my life. What I didn't know was that someone had followed me here. Someone who had been watching, waiting. Chapter 1. A Temporary Escape. 2020 was the year the world shut down. While others stayed locked in their homes, I saw it as an opportunity, an excuse to disappear for a while. My life had taken a turn for the worse. The previous year, a mistake at work had cost a lot of people a lot of money, and I became the scapegoat. Harassment, threats, and constant paranoia forced me to change apartments, switch phone numbers, and eventually quit my job altogether. For months, my phone had been flooded with unknown numbers, many sending messages ranging from insults to outright death threats. And then, one day, it just stopped. Maybe they had moved on, or maybe they had found someone new to torment. Either way, I was relieved. That's when I decided to head into the mountains. Just me, my backpack, and the cold, open sky. Chapter 2. The Perfect Spot. After a 3-hour drive into the Rockies, I parked my truck and set off on foot. The snow-covered trail crunched under every step. There wasn't a soul in sight. Most people were taking the lockdown seriously. By late afternoon, I found a secluded spot near a slow-moving creek, surrounded by towering trees. The water wasn't frozen despite the chill, and the quiet isolation felt like exactly what I needed. I set up my tent a little way off the path, built a fire, and cooked some sausages. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, the forest darkened. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows against the tent. I settled into my sleeping bag, pulling out my book, and let the crackling of the fire lull me into relaxation. Chapter 3. The First Message. I was just a few pages in when my phone buzzed. At first, I ignored it. Hardly anyone ever texted me anymore. But then, it buzzed again, and again. Annoyed, I pulled it out of my pocket and frowned. Unknown number. 3 messages. How's your camping trip going, buddy? Beautiful out here, isn't it? I see why you came here. A slow, sickening dread curled in my stomach. My fingers hovered over the screen before I typed back a simple, "Who is this?" No response. I looked around, my breath visible in the cold night air. The trees stood motionless, silent sentinels in the moonlight. My mind raced for logical explanations. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe it was someone from work still trying to mess with me. Maybe it was just bad timing. But if it was a coincidence, how did they know I was here? Chapter 4. The Watcher. I closed my book, my heart pounding in my chest. My breath came out in uneven puffs. The silence pressed in on me, suddenly too loud, too heavy. Then, a crunch. I froze. It was faint, but unmistakable, the sound of footsteps in the snow. Slow, deliberate. I grabbed my P365 handgun from my bag, gripping it tightly. My fire had started to die down, its warm glow barely illuminating the edges of my campsite. Then, a flash of light, just a second, like a camera flash, coming from somewhere behind my tent. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I forced myself to. A new message. It was a photo of my tent, followed by one more message, "Sleep tight." My body went cold. A wave of pure terror crashed over me. Someone was here, right now, watching me. Chapter 5. Fight or Flight. I acted on instinct. I unzipped my tent and fired 2 shots into the air. The sound of footsteps retreating through the snow sent another jolt of adrenaline through me. Whoever it was, they were still close enough to hear me, to see me. I stood there for what felt like forever, my breath sharp and ragged. The only sound was the wind whistling through the trees. My mind raced. Was it someone from my past? A random psychopath? Or was it worse? I backed into my tent, keeping my gun close, my body still trembling. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even close my eyes. I waited. Chapter 6. The Morning After. Dawn broke with a bitter chill. The golden light filtering through the trees was the only comfort I had after that night. When I finally stepped outside, my fire was nothing but embers. But there, in the snow, just a few feet from my tent, were footprints. They circled my campsite. I felt sick. Someone had been out there for hours, walking around my tent, watching me. I packed up my gear in record time, shoving everything into my bag. Every second I stayed felt like tempting fate. I didn't stop hiking until I was back at my truck, locking the doors behind me. As I drove out of the park, I kept glancing in my rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone standing there, watching. Epilogue. The silence. 5 years have passed. The texts stopped. The phone calls stopped. No one has tried to contact me since. Maybe it was my gun that scared them away. Maybe they were waiting for me to slip up. But sometimes, late at night, I wake up in a cold sweat, remembering those words. Sleep tight. And I still wonder if, out there in the vast wilderness, someone is still watching, waiting for me to return.